What's up? This is Anthony Davis, and I want to try and give a simple and short answer to the question, is yoga safe? Basically, it'll come down to what you mean by yoga and how you practice it. So let's take a deeper look. All right, so if we're talking about yoga and the safety of this practice, the big headline is, yoga is safe. Yoga is a great thing. If you're thinking about starting yoga, if you've never done yoga before, what are you waiting for? You know, some studio next to you has free classes for a week or some kind of intro offer. Get on a mat, get off your couch, go do something. No matter what you're doing now, if you're doing nothing for exercise, yes, do the yoga. It's going to be good for you. If that's going to get you in there, if that's going to get you moving, it's good. Do it. Now, I do want to address how to keep yourself even safer, though. Because yoga is a very, very safe practice in general, but there are ways that you can practice it that will hurt you. And a lot of systems of yoga, a lot of classical systems of yoga, like Ashtanga yoga and Iyengar yoga, frankly, are just filled with poses that you cannot do without hurting yourself eventually. They're too extreme, period. And I hate to throw huge systems like Iyengar and Ashtanga yoga under the bus like that, but and it's not that everything in those systems is harmful, but if you do the crazy poses, you can't do it without some trade-off of health, period. So in order to keep yourself safe in the physical postures of yoga, because I think most people are, if you're asking about safety, it's not about meditation, it's not about breathing, because let's be honest, I can sit on a cushion and do my breathing and I'm fine. I'm not going to hurt myself doing that. So the traditional aspects of yoga are mostly okay, except for when you get into the austerities, when you're, basically starving yourself and calling it fasting, or the shat karmas, so the Ayurvedic things where you're like drinking salt water until you crap yourself. And it's just, you would know that it's dangerous. So some of those things are totally crazy, but mostly the old stuff is just sitting down on a cushion, closing your eyes, and doing some breathing, totally safe. Now the new stuff, though, is all the exercise stuff. And the biggest potential danger is just hyperflexibility. So moving your joints in excessive range of motion, essentially doing contortionism, and doing that too often. And the thing that happens is a lot of people think, if I have the strength, if I don't have any pain, if I can support myself in the pose, then it's safe. But the truth is, you don't have a lot of sensory apparatus in the center of your joint. You won't necessarily feel if, like in your knee joint, if your ACL is being strained excessively, because there's not a lot of vasculature, there's not a lot of blood flow to that area, and there's not a lot of innervation, nerves that can actually feel if there's pain there. So you might not feel something, you might not feel that the discs in your spine are being worn down and degrading, or that the surfaces that glide together in the facet joints of your spine are being worn down. You might not feel the facet arthrosis developing, for example. So until it's too late, until it's very painful. So pain is not a good guide, and so how do we gauge this? Essentially, don't put flexibility as your number one goal in yoga, right? Yoga has way more to offer you anyway. It can make you a more peaceful person. It can help you to control your reflexes, both mentally and physically. How you treat other people. It can completely shift the shape of your life. And so making flexibility the point of yoga is a little silly anyway, and it's dangerous. So I'll give you an example, a tangible example. There's a pose that we call wheel pose, or Dhanurasana, and it's a pose where we're in a back bend. We, our arms will be behind us over our head, and I can kind of show you here, where you go like this, your hands are here, and then you push up into an upward facing, just a wheel, like a half of a wheel or an arch. I'm not going to do it right now because I don't like the pose. But in that pose, for example, we take the shoulder joint, the glenohumeral joint, and normal range of motion, according to the American Association of Orthopedic Surgeons, I'm pretty sure that's the organization, normal range of motion for your shoulder joint is straight up. You should be able to reach, if you're a normal, healthy person, you should be able to reach up, straight up, or close. You should be close to straight up. So if I can move my shoulder joint beyond straight up, then this, I am demonstrating hypermobility. This is straight up. This is hypermobility, right? So anytime I take, and that wheel pose takes my joint from straight up, it takes it way back behind me. So I'm demonstrating hypermobility through the pose. And the more that I do that, my muscles might adapt fine, but the soft tissues around the joint capsule, the ligaments, the labrum, if it's your knee, then the meniscus, and so on, will adapt by becoming loose. They'll just be loose. And so if you trip and fall, you are more prone to injury. If you twist your arm in a funny way or grab something in the funny way, you try and pick something up in the wrong angle, your joints are inherently less stable. And that is never a good thing. There is never a good reason to have less stable joints. Now, if you want to work on flexibility to increase the elasticity of your muscles and your connective tissues because you're tight, that's fine. But if you're constantly trying to move deeper into a pose, if you're using straps and partners and gravity to force yourself deeper into a pose, then you're going to hurt yourself. And it's probably going to be down the road in 5 or 10 years where you just wear those joint surfaces down, your ligaments are all loosey-goosey, and then you dislocate a joint or you tear a labrum because your joint is just so loose, it's just flaccid, and besides that, if you overstretch your tissues, your muscle tissues and your connective tissues, then you don't have the springiness. So when you take a muscle, fortunately I've got a bag full of stretchy things here. So if you take your muscle and you stretch your muscle out, it should have a natural, like I have to hold this here, it should have a natural tendency that it wants to go back to its normal resting length. If I expand it, and then if I stop exerting effort, it pulls back together. It has its own force. It wants to pull back to center. And your muscles are just like that. If you stretch them out, they want to come back to their normal resting length. But the more you get used to stretching and stretching and stretching and stretching them out, the less elasticity they have, the less they want to actually come back to their resting length. They get used to just being all loose and relaxed. And when that happens, you are less strong, you are less coordinated, you are less stable around your joints. you are less able to generate force and move throughout your world. So hyperflexibility, that's the main concern. And again, it is a concern that only starts to really show itself years down the road for most of us, but it is a concern that's very real that you'll have to deal with eventually. So if you go to your yoga class and your yoga teacher is saying things like, if you want to take it to the next level, put your foot behind your head. Maybe you just say, today I'm okay with just kind of here. I just want to hug my knee and just be gentle and just breathe, instead of, like forcing things. So the simple version is never force anything. Never force anything. Never use props or external circumstances or gravity or your hand, to force a body part somewhere it doesn't belong. And then an easy way to gauge it is basically, if you took a picture of yourself in a yoga pose, the more likes that you would get for it on Instagram, the less safe it is. Bottom line, right? I mean, the crazier it is, the more likes on Instagram, the less safe it is. So just use restraint, be kind to your body. The very, very first in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, the very first limb of the 8-limbed path involves ahimsa, and the ahimsa is just nonviolence. So don't hurt yourself, right? So the very, very first tenet, you could say that the very first and most fundamental tenet of all of yoga, at least of Patanjali's system, is don't hurt yourself, don't hurt other people, right? Ahimsa. So if you're hurting yourself in your practice, if you're trying to force your foot behind your head or whatever, then you're not doing yoga, you're doing contortionism. And if it feels really good to do that, you can do that. But you need to recognize that you're making a trade-off for your health. So dial it back, breathe, be gentle, be safe, and enjoy a subtler aspect, an internal landscape of peace, an internal knowledge of, strength and balance and stability in the body. So that's it. If there's anything that I didn't cover there, any other major dangers, which I'd like to break down some individual poses. I'll throw out a couple right now. Just stop doing headstand. Just stop that. No tripod headstand, no shoulder stand. Just stop doing that pose altogether. Just get rid of it. Barring extreme modifications. There are safe ways to do it, but no headstand, no shoulder stand, and those are the big ones. And that'll keep you safe. Cool. All right. Peace.